welcome to The Explainer. So, what does the actor who plays Jesus in a hit TV show have to do with the Knights Templar and a conspiracy that's supposedly been running for centuries? Today, we're going to pull on that thread and deconstruct a pretty wild theory that claims to connect them all. All right, let's dive in. So, this whole thing kicks off with this pretty startling admission from Jonathan Roumie, the actor from The Chosen. He just comes right out and says he was knighted by an order that he calls, his words, essentially the Knights Templar. I mean, wow. Okay, so what on earth does that actually mean? That claim right there is our jumping off point for the whole theory. First up, the source material tries to figure out what this knighthood really signifies. Okay, so right off the bat, the theory makes this huge leap. It argues that this Knights Templar title isn't just some honorary thing. No, it's supposedly on the same level as a 33rd degree Freemason, and that's the highest public rank you can get in that whole secret society. So this alleged link, that's the very first piece of the puzzle we're looking at.
The next thing the theory zeroes in on is Roumie's use of skull imagery. Now, he explains it himself with the phrase memento mori, which is a well-known Catholic tradition, a reminder that we're all mortal. But as you can probably guess, the source argues there's a lot more to that symbol than meets the eye.
And this is where it gets really interesting. The source points out that memento mori isn't just a Catholic idea. The exact same concept, remember you will die, is also a central theme in Freemasonry. The theory argues this isn't a coincidence. It's an ideological bridge, a shared philosophy connecting these two very different worlds. So, with this shared ideology in place, the theory makes its first massive historical claim that the connection between the Templars and the Freemasons isn't just symbolic, it's literally historical. And to back this up, they pull a quote from a pretty major figure, Albert Pike, a very high-ranking Freemason from the 19th century. In his own book, he wrote that when the Templar Order was officially shut down, the members didn't just vanish. He claims they went underground, hiding themselves within the lodges of the Brethren Masons. This timeline basically shows you how the source claims this all went down. The theory, building on Pike's writings, suggests that just before he was executed, the last Templar Grand Master, a guy named Jacques de Molay, secretly created new lodges to keep the order alive. And those secret lodges, the theory goes, eventually became modern Freemasonry. So that raises a pretty big question, right? If the Templars just morphed into the Freemasons, then who's really pulling the strings today? Well, according to this theory, the hierarchy doesn't stop there. Nope, it claims there's another, even more secretive layer of power sitting on top of it all. And that brings us to the next and maybe most critical piece of this whole puzzle, the alleged role of the Society of Jesus. You know them as the Jesuits, as the ultimate controllers. Then, the source drops this absolute bombshell of a quote. And the really crazy part? It's supposedly not from some anti-Masonic conspiracy book. The source identifies it as coming from a 19th century Masonic magazine. It flat out claims that Freemasonry is secretly directed by the Jesuit order, and that the average Mason is totally clueless. They're just, in its words, slaves of the Jesuits. So let's break down this power structure that the theory is alleging. You've got the Jesuits at the very top, acting as the secret puppet masters. Then, one level down, you've got the high-level Masons, the inner circle, who are actually in on the secret. And then at the bottom, you have the vast majority of Masons, who are kept completely in the dark, basically serving as unwitting tools. Now, to try and really cement this Jesuit connection, the source points to a few other details. First, there's the fact that Jonathan Roumie's own father went to a Jesuit school. Then, there's a claim from a researcher, Walter Veith, that the Jesuits inherited ancient Templar knowledge. And it even pulls a quote from the famous occultist Helena Blavatsky, who also talked about Jesuit influence over modern secret societies. So this theory isn't just about who said what, you know? It really tries to connect all these dots by digging into a shared language of secret symbols and ideas. It's about reading between the lines. For example, the source brings up research from Walter Veith again. He claims that at an original Knights Templar holy site in Jerusalem, he found an altar that was covered in these symbols. You've got the double-headed eagle, the two swords forming a compass, and the whole point is these are famously Masonic symbols. So the question is,
why would they be found in an ancient Templar location?
And just when you think you have all the players, the theory throws another group into the mix. It turns out Jonathan Roumie also recently joined the Knights of Columbus, and the source wants us to pay very close attention to one specific and very powerful symbol in their emblem, the fasces.
So what is this fasces? Well, according to Britannica, it's an ancient Roman symbol of power, and it's actually the roots of the word fascism. It represents strength through unity, the idea that the collective group is way more important than the rights of any single individual.
And here is the quote that's supposed to tie this all together. It's allegedly from an official Jesuit publication called Civila Catholica, and it seems to say that fascism as a political system is the one that aligns most closely with the concepts of the Roman Church. A pretty provocative claim, to say the least. Okay, so after all of that, the actor, the societies, the symbols, where do we land? It all builds up to this one final, all-encompassing grand theory. It's an attempt to weave every single thread we've looked at into one single story. So this is it. This is the big one. This diagram, which is based on Walter Veith's work, lays out the whole theory. It's claiming there's a single, unbroken line of secret knowledge that stretches all the way from ancient Babylonian religion, passed down through the Gnostics to the Knights Templar. Then the Jesuits supposedly inherited it and finally created Freemasonry to be their controlled Protestant arm to influence the rest of the world. So, at the end of the day, the theory we've deconstructed here leaves you with this massive question. Are all these things, these powerful groups, ancient symbols, and even modern celebrities, just a giant series of historical coincidences? Or, as the source argues, are they all just different masks for the same unified secret order that's been running the show for centuries?